than you might know. Now, here are the statistics that every 3 seconds somebody suffers from Alzheimer or dementia. That's how critical this conversation is, and that's why we're having it this morning. And let's just define what Alzheimer or dementia is. It is a collective name for progressive degenerative brain syndromes which affect memory, thinking, behavior, and emotion. Now, symptoms that come with this disease include loss of memory, difficulty in finding the right words or understanding what people are saying, difficulty in performing previously routine tasks, and of course, personality and mood changes. Well, is it treatment for Alzheimer's or dementia? Well, truth of the matter is currently there is no cure for most types of dementia, but it can be managed by treatment and support. Well, to help me have this conversation this morning is Susan Mwangi, who is a caregiver of her husband of 9 years living with Alzheimer's. Thank you for your time. We have Elizabeth Mutunga, who is a CEO and founder of the Alzheimer Dementia Organization of Kenya, ADOC. Thank you for coming. And of course, Ambika, I will not even try to pronounce your last name. She is a clinical psychologist. Thank you for your time. How do you pronounce the last name? I shall leave it at that. Well, thank you, ladies, for taking time to be with us. Well, Alzheimer's, and I'll start this with Ambika. As we defined it, it is a progressive degenerative brain syndrome which affects memory, thinking, behavior, and emotion. Now, to a layman, that sounds like wear and tear of something. So, what exactly goes on in the mind of somebody who suffers from Alzheimer's or dementia?
Yeah. To begin with, dementia is an umbrella term. It's a term that includes many types of dementia. Mm-hmm. And Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. And what happens typically with Alzheimer's is there is progressive memory loss. So the patient might not be able to remember what happened just 5 minutes ago, or they might not be able to find the right word, like you said, to express. So there is progressive memory loss. That's the key characteristic of Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And communication is another aspect that is affected. So they might not be able to express verbally what they want to, and their comprehension about what others are trying to explain to them might as well be affected. Mm-hmm. And there are changes in behavior. So one can get really aggressive, or there is marked wandering and behavior changes like that. Mm-hmm. And of course emotional changes, like because there are so many things happening inside them, and they're not able to really cope with it. Mm-hmm. And they're not able to express it. So obviously we expect somebody going through that to experience emotional changes. Mm-hmm. And depression, anxiety are common comorbid conditions.
Okay. All right. So Elizabeth, you are a former caregiver. Your dad passed away because he had Alzheimer's?
Yes, he did.
Yes. And you took care of him for how long?
He lived with it for 17 years, mm-hmm. but the initial stages, that's when it was very difficult because we were trying to understand what it was. Mm-hmm. And by the time he was when we started seeing the symptoms, that was in early 1992, mm-hmm. there was no conversation. Nobody even understood what it was. A lot of people felt it was a disease from the Western world, mm-hmm. so nobody had it in Kenya. And we actually finally got a diagnosis in 2007, and he passed on in 2009.
Oh, we're sorry for that, but I think the question here would be, is it a genetic thing? Is it something in the environment? What, now that you've experienced it in the family?
Yes, there's a genetic component. They say when you have somebody who's got dementia, chances are you could get. Sometimes they say it skips a generation and goes to the next generation. Mm-hmm. So we keep hoping that none of us shall get it. But also the environment, a lot of times there's been studies done that have contributed. They've said the environment is also contributing. The industrialization and all that is happening currently in the world is also contributing to the changes. So there are many factors and many risks that are involved. Also the age of the person. It could be 65 years and above, but now we're also getting people, even like Susan will tell you, her husband got it at a young he got young onset dementia, which is from, he got it at 47 years. And you know, people even who are as early as 30 years who are now getting it. So there are very many risk factors: obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes. All these are risk factors that could bring dementia.
Okay, now that you've touched on Susan, give us your story. Your husband, as she says, was diagnosed at the age of 47? 47. And 47 would be considered pretty young for somebody who is living with dementia. How did you figure out that he was actually suffering from it?
Well, when he got sick, I actually didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what he was suffering from. But, you know, I thought he was stressed. So we started going to doctors. We went to a GP. The first time we went to a GP. Then the GP diagnosed him with stress. So we were put on medication for stress it took for around 4 months. But nothing was happening. Then I asked for a referral. I was referred to a psychiatrist. I went to a psychiatrist who diagnosed memory loss also. So the second one diagnosed depression, the third one diagnosed memory loss. Then finally the fourth one is the one who diagnosed him with severe and dementia. Okay,
in your case, when you thought it was stress at the onset, what were you seeing that was different about him?
I was seeing a lot of forgetting. He would forget even where he has kept his keys. He would forget important appointments, like if you say we are going somewhere, when the day comes he says you didn't tell me. You know, he would forget even to do, you know, some, not just normal things like what we can do. He would forget to do that. Because I started seeing when he was going out, he would write the chores that he was supposed to do. Yeah, and once he does this, he ticks, you know, something like that. That was not happening before.
Okay. Yeah. All right, back to you, Ambika. As they've mentioned, this is happening to our younger people now more than before. Is there anything specific to that you can attribute to it?
Yes, typically 65 and above was considered to be the typical age to get Alzheimer's. But now we are seeing a shift in that. Maybe the factors that could be contributing to it are lifestyle changes. It could be because of high prevalence of diabetes and hypertension, which increase the risk of one developing Alzheimer's. So it could be that factors like lifestyle changes and urbanization are contributing to younger population getting Alzheimer's.
Okay, what is the youngest you've had to deal with?
Youngest was in our group, it was Susan's husband.
47. But you mentioned, Elizabeth, that you've even come across some that are as young as 30?
As 30 years, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And in such cases, what is it? Is it the same symptoms that were actually noticed, or was there something that actually kind of instigated this?
Like she said, when she went also to hospital, they first start by checking on if they're depressed or is it stress. A lot of people we meet, there's been a connection between stress and them getting dementia. So we've had cases of either loss of a loved one, loss of a job, any loss that they may experience, loss of finances. So some of them, it starts with that loss, and then they either go, it looks like they go into a depression, and then by the time you actually realize it's moved on. So there are many other factors also. It's not only stress, but most of the people who we have met who are younger, it's because of a loss that they have gone through. Yeah.
Okay, for you, Susan, having now a husband that you have to take care of course, that meant your life changed totally. How far are you with this? Because of course, as we say, there's no cure. How do you walk with him in this journey of Alzheimer's?
Well, it has been a long journey because the diagnosis was done in 2010, and up to now, you know, I'm still taking care of him. You know, your life has to change. You know, I left my job to go and take care of him. Now he has lost his job, and I also lost my job because I had to go take care of him. You know, it is not easy because it progresses in stages. Today he can shower himself, tomorrow he will not be able to shower himself. Currently he doesn't know me, he doesn't know his children, he doesn't talk, he doesn't feed himself, he cannot do anything for himself. So I basically do, it depends on me 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the symptoms, Ambika, as you mentioned, was the loss of ability to do the routine things that came to them. The degeneration, is it specific to one person, or do you expect the same to follow suit in everybody? How does it work?
Yes, we have stages, you know, that each person goes through with Alzheimer's, but the symptoms may vary, the intensity of the symptoms may vary. So the progression is not the same for everybody, the course of progression. So the symptoms may vary, and the intensity with which they experience a particular symptom definitely varies. But there are stages. So first is the mild stage, and then the degeneration continues, and the patient progresses into the moderate stage, and then there is the final severe stage.
Okay, Elizabeth,
Yes.
your experience with your father, how was that?
It was difficult because when he got sick, I was 17. I just cleared my 4th form, and he had moved us. My father was a policeman, and he had moved us from a 4-bedroom maisonette house to a, how do I call it, like a Mabati house round the corner. And my dad was a person who was very smart. He dressed up smartly, and now all of a sudden he's wearing clothes on top of the others, and you're wondering what happened to him. Why isn't he dressing up the way he used to? Then he started now, after he moved us to this house, he started telling us how Jesus is coming soon. And he was one person who was very organized in everything he did. My sister was going to Form 1 then he says, I don't educate girls. I only, and I'm thinking, you've just taken me to high school. How are you not educating girls? So I was seeing a lot of changes, but we're not understanding what was going on. And then it also did not help that he was Kamba. And a lot of stories were, of course, there's been a bit of Kamote and all that. And then my mother came from KQ background, but from Kabete.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the statements they make. So there's a lot of mixed statements, and a lot of people, that is when even we were Christians all along, but now you start hearing people saying, actually don't visit that home, because at that point I was going through depression because I was not understanding what's going on. My sister got ulcers, my mother was also going through depression, my brother developed bipolar. I mean, it was a mixture of so many things in this family, and people are saying, please don't visit that home. So it was quite difficult because there was no one to walk with, there was no help. Your self-esteem is really going low. So it was really a difficult journey, and then culminating with him now selling the car in parts. And so he sells the tires alone, and he sells the rest of the body of the vehicle alone, because to him, he doesn't see it as one unit. And so there was a lot of questions. How do you get help? Where do you seek help? And you just finished school. So it was very difficult initially, and that is why in 2007, I met with other people now who started explaining what this is, and that is now when we started realizing what the problem is.
2007, that
Yes.
was how many years after he was diagnosed?
About 10.
10 years.
Yes. Actually, in 92, actually, we didn't know what he had. And of course, before even you start seeing the symptoms, it should have started even 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
And we had noticed because he had been retrenched, and so like I said, it was a loss to him. We had lost a sister from cancer, so he had many losses. And my dad, being a policeman and being a man, you don't mourn and don't look sad. You need to be in control of everything. So in 2007, that's now when I started understanding what we are dealing with, and that's when now we started starting a support group, because we had looked for a support group and you couldn't get any. And I kept wondering, with all the other terminal illnesses, you hear there's a support group, but for dementia there was no support group. And so that's how in 2007 we started the support group, so that we can hold somebody else's hand and also understand what to expect with the progression of the disease.
Okay, speaking
Yes.
about stigma, Susan, after your husband was diagnosed with this and he's been living with this for over 10 years, how has the stigma around it, people trying to understand or not understanding what you're dealing with?
People not trying to understand what I'm dealing with. You know, when somebody gets sick with this kind of disease, you know, it's like a foreign thing, the way she said. I myself was not understanding even what it was. I didn't actually know what it was. So even explaining to somebody, I didn't know what to tell somebody that is suffering from this. So once I became aware of what was happening, by that time actually I was alone. People stopped visiting, people stopped calling. You know, as we pass on the streets, I'm holding his hand, people are pointing, you know, fingers at you, you know, or you pass and then they don't ask you, what is the problem? No, they wait you pass and then they ask the next one, huyu ni mgonjwa nini? So it is really hard, especially with the community, even with the family, before they come to understand. It is really hard, but then you know, you just understand, because even you yourself, you know, you used to have self-stigma because you don't know what is happening. So you also locked yourself in the house with him. I locked myself in the house for 2.5 years before I could get out and face people, because, you know, we had a life. You know, this was somebody who was okay, he's educated, he's learned, you know, we had it all. But right now that person is there, seated there. If you come, he doesn't even recognize you. He doesn't even recognize his wife, you know. And as she said, a lot of stories like, you know, this is Sibure, this is not for nothing. There must be something that happened. Yeah.
Wow. The intensity of those affected by dementia have to live with, and of course it's even worse for those who have to live with the dementia. Now, as we continue with this conversation, we need to cross over now to Nairobi West Prison, where I'm informed both the CS for Interior Fred Matiang'i and the IG Joseph Boynet are actually visiting the facility, and the IG is currently speaking. Let's listen in.
As a matter of fact, excellent. We work very well in the multi-agency format as instructed by His Excellency the President, and I want to confirm in this instance that we have worked very, very well with the Prisons Department whenever we require additional personnel to perform national duties, like for instance the past coverage of the general elections in the last year, as well as the coming examinations. We have drawn up operational plans, and we have incorporated officers from the prison service, and we are certain that the good work that we have done in the past will be done quite well indeed again this year. With those few remarks, I want to thank you, Commissioner General, for giving me the opportunity and the permission of the CS to make those couple of confirmations. I thank you very much for listening to me, and God bless you.
The CS, Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry, Hon Tutu, Inspector General of Police, Mr. Joseph Boynet, Commissioner General of Prisons, Mr. Osugo, our Regional Coordinator, Nairobi Region, all the senior officers present here, my colleagues in the department, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I take this opportunity to welcome you all to the State Department for Corrections and to the large Ministry of Interior and Coordination of Government for this auspicious occasion where we see the flag of our fleet of vehicles by the chief guest, the CS. I want to take this opportunity, CS, to thank you for the support you continue to give this department and for making this time today to officiate this function. Our mandate, CS, is Haki na Kurekebisha, meaning justice and rehabilitation. And I want to reassure you and everyone present here that this event today marks the strengthening of our capacity to carry out our mandate of rehabilitation for our prisoners. We also, CS, this event marks a good starting point following up on the event we had 2 weeks ago of strengthening and supporting the welfare of our staff by ensuring they have the tools to work. I want at this point, CS, to also thank all my officers in the ministry headquarters at the Prisons Department for their continued efforts to support our reform program. CS, I believe with the constant support you continue giving us, we will, in the next 2-3 years, be able to transform this department to deliver fully our mandate. As this is your day, CS, I would like now to welcome the Chief Administrative Secretary, who will then welcome you to carry out the official function. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our CS for Correctional Services, for giving me this opportunity. CS Ministry of Interior, PS Correctional Service, Commissioner General, IG, Regional Commissioners, and all the officers, good afternoon. I want to take this opportunity first and foremost to congratulate the Correctional Service for now getting new vehicle. I know for a long time, when I see as Correctional Service, all the prison has been left out, either in housing and even the issues of transport has for a long time become a problem. But I want to sincerely thank you, because for the last 6 months, we have been going around with you in inspecting all the prisons. And I'm glad, because the work that we have been doing with the ministry is to make sure that we support correctional services and other departments in our ministry. We are not going to forget that His Excellency the President's vision is to make sure that we support our staff who are in the field. That is why we see these very new, good vehicles. Honorable CS, I just want to urge our prison officers, our correctional services officers, that let's use this vehicle properly, because these are very durable vehicles, particularly the Land Cruisers, Toyotas, and the Isuzus. If used properly, we can actually achieve a lot. I don't want to continue from there. I now want to take this opportunity to welcome our CS. But before he comes, I will ask all of us to upstanding so that we welcome him with two good hands. Let's just prepare our hands properly. Tutengeneze ile yetu ya mzee Moi, hata akiwa huko Kabarak atasikia tuko sawasawa pande hii. Tutengeneze 1, 2, 3. Karibu bwana CS.
Please, thank you. Let's be seated. Thank you. My good brother and friend, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry, Honorable Ntutu, our Principal Secretary, Madam Zainabu Hussein, the Commissioner General, Prison Service, Mr. Osugo, our brother, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Joseph Boynet, the large team of national administration officials here who are led by our Regional Commissioner for Nairobi, Mr. Tuku, and all of you, my colleagues and friends who have come here. I want to make a special mention of the Honorable Mr. Justice Luka Kimaru, who chairs the Community Service Order Committee from the Judiciary, who is seated with us. Justice Kimaru, thank you very much for joining us. And I'll be saying 1 or 2 things shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, the function we have this morning is brief and straightforward. We are flagging off 100 vehicles for the National Prisons Service. And this is part of our program as government to modernize the prison service and the entirety of our correction service system. For a long time, sometimes it has looked like our correctional services are neglected or they are not part of our focus. But I want to confirm to the country and to all stakeholders involved that our President has demanded that we adopt a comprehensive approach to reforming the security sector, including paying attention to the correctional services. And that is why recently you have seen an intensified drive to address the needs of the Correctional Services Department. I can report to you here that we have completed several buildings that were stalled, some for as many as 11 years. And some of our prison service staff are now living in comfortable accommodation. We have embarked on a new program that will soon be rolled out to ensure that the correctional services utilize effectively the immense resources that have been endowed to us and ensure that our entrepreneurial capacity is exploited so that we can generate income both for us and for the rest of the country. I'm grateful, and I sincerely want to thank my colleagues in the ministry, especially this particular department, for the efforts that have gone into improving the Correctional Services Department. PS, I thank the Lord for you, and I thank the Lord for the drive and energy that you have brought to the team. The Commissioner General, I have often told you that even if we have been working under difficult circumstances, you have still held out very well. And I can confirm again, as I have done several times to my colleagues in the Correctional Services Department, that our better and greater days are ahead, given the immense reform program that we are rolling out across the board. We are managing the security sector under the guidance we have been given by His Excellency the President to ensure that we adopt a multi-agency approach, that we work together, so that even the vehicles that we are flagging off today, yes, they have been entrusted to us in the correctional services, but they are within the pool of the security sector. When our colleagues in the National Police Service need them, they will be available. When our colleagues in the National Government Administration need them, they will be available. We will work as one and deliver as one government. Share the resources that have been entrusted to us by the people of Kenya to ensure that those resources go a long way to offer the services that our people need. And therefore, I want to ask the Commissioner General that as we continue the transformation program in our meetings, in our discussions with our officers, we have to entrench the multi-agency approach to ensure that we are one. Protecting turf and always insisting on turf does not help us. I say all these good things, well aware that we have a lot to do and there's more that we need to invest in. Going into the future, we are looking at how we can decongest our prisons. We have numbers that are slightly higher than the capacities we have. That is why recently we are working together with the Ministry of Transport, the National Transport and Safety Authority, jointly with our colleagues in the Office of the Attorney General, to ensure that we support the Inspector General of Police in effecting the on-spot fines, so that we don't have to have queues outside magistrates' courts, so that we don't have to feed 6,000 or so people on traffic offenses. Because as I've often pointed out, we will keep them in our remand custody. We will spend 10,000 shillings on them when the fine they're actually going to pay is about 1,000 shillings. It just simply doesn't make economic sense. We have to think differently and ensure that we provide better services as we move forward. And that's why I'm very grateful to our brother Justice Luka Kimaru and the team that he heads from the judiciary. We have built a very strong relationship, and going into the future we will try and even share resources within our disposal to ensure that we support his committee and support the judiciary to move forward on some of the decisions they need to make, so that we decongest our prisons and our people access justice in real time. I said 2 weeks ago, as the PS said, that we were at Kahawa, launching a new court, and we are going to do so in other courts, in other prisons across the country, so that we enhance access to justice, which is very important, and so that we don't have to spend so much time moving people to the courts, because magistrates can very easily travel to the prison premises. We have enough land, we have enough resources, and with the support of our development partners, this is the trajectory we want to go. My two last points are these: that one, I want to ask my colleagues that we have to reform and step up and do better than we have done. I was very impressed, Commissioner General, by what I saw in Embu the other day when we were there. I have seen the work that we are doing in the north in terms of generating income, using the land that has been given to us, tilling the land, growing and producing food, partly to support the President's Big Four, but most importantly also to reduce our dependence on the exchequer, as it were. And I want to say this very frankly: we will continue this way. We must use the resources we have been given effectively. And the suspension we announced a month ago on any quarrying activities on any of our premises is still in force. These are public resources. We cannot go and get stones from Kahawa without following an open public tendering process that respects the rules of procurement. We have to respect these are not our resources. These are resources that belong to the people of Kenya, and we have to use them responsibly as responsible officers. Lastly is to promise all of you, my colleagues, and promise the country that reform we will. And the rapid changes that you are seeing as we move forward are exactly moving in the direction that we have been directed by our President, so that we have an improved security sector, a collaborative, inclusive environment where we enable our people to be safe and secure, they access justice, and we respect the human rights of those who come to our institutions. We no longer have that kind of debate about whether or not we are going to respect the human rights of those who are within our custody. We are not only required by the Constitution and the law of the land, but we are also going to be a modern correctional institution and a modern correctional ecosystem that respects the rule of law, respects human rights, as it were. So that is a promise we collectively make to all of you, that we will do our best to ensure that these all are upheld. I want to thank you, PS and Commissioner General. I want to thank you for organizing such a brilliant function, very well, and very orderly, very nicely laid out. I'm very, very impressed. And on my own behalf, on behalf of my family, and on behalf of the ministry, I would like to say pole to some of our colleagues. We lost two of our staffers this week in a tragic accident. This is usually a very sad time for us, but we will stand with the families. We will pray for them that the Lord comforts them, and as our colleagues, we will ensure that we support them through this difficult time. Later this afternoon, I will be visiting with the family together with the PS and the team from the ministry, so that we can condole with the families and stand with the families, because these are our brothers and sisters that the Lord has brought into our lives through work, and we need to stand together as we provide service to our nation. So thank you very much for listening to me. May God bless you all, and let us go forth and do good for our country. Thank you.
The CS for Interior Fred Matiang'i speaking at the Nairobi West prison facility, even as he flags off vehicles to be used in the different prison facilities in the country, and this is in a bid to improve correctional facilities across the country. More detail coming out of that, even as our reporter Halima Gongo follows up on the same. Right now, we take a short break. When we're back, we'll be talking more on that conversation to do with dementia. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with NTV Today. My name is Gladys Gachanja. It is the month of September, a month that is also considered the World Alzheimer's Month. And to be specific, actually this particular September in 2018 is the 7th Global World Alzheimer's Month. And now, as I earlier indicated, every 3 seconds somebody is actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So it is a critical conversation to have, and it might sound like something very Western, but it is here with us in Kenya. Now, to have a conversation of the same in the Kenyan context, I am joined by Ambika, who is a clinical psychologist, Elizabeth Mutunga, who is the CEO founder of the Alzheimer Dementia Organization of Kenya, ADOK, and of course Susan Mwangi, who is a caregiver of her husband of 9 years. Now, ladies, we were talking about the stigma, and you said how intense it can be, especially when people do not understand or even try to understand. But let's go back to probably even when you catch it, Ambika. Is it easy to diagnose Alzheimer's? And if it is diagnosed early, does it speak on the treatment of the same?
Yes, early detection is the key, because then we are able to provide a better quality of life to dementia patients. So one of the things that we are working on is to promote early detection of dementia. So coming back to dementia diagnosis, it's complex. It's not done by a single test, because we don't have a blood biomarker which says that somebody is having Alzheimer's. So it has to be confirmed by a neurologist, and he does a lot of tests before proposing that it could be dementia. Yes.
Okay, now to you, Elizabeth, looking at the statistics, I mean, over 50 million, or rather, dementia is said to be alive and well in low and middle income countries. Now, Kenya would fall in that bracket. So how does Kenya look like when it comes to the statistics of people living with dementia?
At the moment, we don't have any statistics in Kenya, because like we had said earlier, because of stigma. And a lot of people also, when they go in, like Ambika just said earlier, we are trying to actually advocate for early detection. But a lot of times when somebody even is taken to hospital, it would be because of another condition. Maybe it was diabetes or something else. So, or they are forgetting, or maybe you're thinking they are just behaving in a manner like this, just maybe they're not okay mentally. So a lot of times it's not easy to catch that somebody has dementia. So one of the things now we are involved in is a project called STRIDE, which is strengthening dementia responses in developing countries. And that's one of the things that we'll be working on to try and get statistics for Kenya. So it's a 4-year project, and it's one of the things that we are hoping that we will finally get the numbers, because at the moment we don't have specific numbers. For, like, in our group, we have about 400 people who have come out and said that they have loved ones with dementia, but we know there are more numbers out there. A lot of times you hear of elderly people being killed, like in Kisii, for example, and people are thinking they are witches, but it's just because they are exhibiting dementia-like symptoms, but because people don't understand what it is, they suspect, because sometimes they could just be running naked just because they forgot to put on an outfit or a dress, or they come knocking your door and then they run away, and it's because they're confused. They're trying to figure out, is this my house, is this the neighbor's house? So a lot of times they are suspected to be witches, but they are not. So we believe there are very many cases, especially in the rural areas.
And for you, Susan, apart from diagnosis, I mean, or rather even the stigma that you have to live with in as far as your loved one living with Alzheimer's is concerned, there's a treatment factor. As it is globally, dementia, Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia take a lot to treat because there's no cure for it. How does it look like in your daily budget?
Very expensive, because even when the diagnosis is done, you are told there is no cure. The medication that is here is just to maintain, maybe somebody not to dip very fast, and the medication is very, very expensive. Because I remember when my hubby got sick, and you know, now he's jobless and I'm jobless. Now we were seeking for medication everywhere, because you want your person to get well, because you thought he is going to get well. So we used to go to private doctors who are very, very expensive, and every doctor will prescribe their own medication. You buy those medication, so eventually actually you just run broke. So it is really very expensive to maintain that kind of a person, leave alone even the medication. The care itself is very expensive because this person will end up losing both incontinences. To have incontinences, you'll have to use diapers. It's very expensive. And if you are not working and that person needs to eat and eat well for that matter, how do you manage that? So definitely it is a very expensive disease. Yeah.
Okay, Ambika, talking about the treatment, what exactly does treatment for people living with dementia look like?
Yes. So treatment is not about cure, like Susan mentioned. It's about management. It's about improving quality of life. So it's about managing comorbid conditions like the presence of diabetes, hypertension, infections, and then making the environment safe for them, making it more predictable, establishing routines for them. So having a daily schedule, like from morning 7 a.m. to evening 7 a.m. what do they do? So planning their day. It's more about that, and also about caregiving burden, like Susan mentioned, is really high with dementia patients because some of them require 24/7 assistance. So that's really taxing on the caregiver. So caregiver care is important as well in management of dementia. Yeah.
So you actually look out for these caregivers and focus on them?
Yes, absolutely. As a group, we are trying to do that. We are trying to educate caregivers as well, that it's very important to take care of themselves, you know, before they are able to provide care for dementia or Alzheimer's patients.
Now, on the Kenyan context, Elizabeth, she says it's expensive. Managing this is expensive. You have an experience of the same. How much support are you getting from the government, and how much have you been able to draw for these people that have reached out to you?
At the moment, there is no support given by the government, because I think this is a conversation that we are now starting to have, and we're very grateful actually to the Ministry of Health, because now they have reached out to us and we are working together. We are working on the dementia plan for Kenya, because it's one of the requirements by the WHO, and Kenya has to work on its own dementia plan. So these are some of the things that we are actually working together with the Ministry of Health to ensure that there's caregiver support, both financially, if they have to seek services of a counseling psychologist, if they have to maybe get a job because their loved one who was now the breadwinner no longer has a job. So all these things are things that the Ministry of Health is working on to ensure that it is captured in the dementia plan. We can say we are not where we were a few years ago, and so for us we are at a good space at the moment. Of course it will get better, we believe so, with time, but we are at a good space where we're having a conversation, and anytime there's anything to do with dementia, you're involved. We had the World Alzheimer's Day on 21st of September, and they came in and they were involved with launching the day. That's the first time it has happened in Kenya, so for us it was a great step. So we believe that the conversations will get better, and as we continue engaging them and them hearing from us and what we are going through as people who have been affected by dementia, then we hope that with time there will be help that will come through. Yes.
Okay, and for you, Susan, talking about support, the organization in the Kenyan context has that support group. Has that support helped you in dealing with a husband who needs daily care? Has it also opened up your eyes in better ways of taking care of your husband? What role has it played?
The support group has been really helpful. Before I joined the support group, that was in 2013, I was depressed. I was depressed because no one was talking to me, simply because no one seemed to understand what was happening. So I was depressed all the time in the house with a sick person, so I was getting sick too. So one day I just thought, is there no support group for mental health? So, and since I didn't know one, I just keyed in that on my phone. So somebody popped up and I read, and when I read I found a story. And I saw myself in a story. Then I said, oh, let me contact her. And since, I had that self-stigma, as I said, I was in the house. So I thought she will not reply my message. So in the morning, and that was around 12, I never used to sleep. I never used to have sleep. So around 12 a.m. So in the morning, I found a message she had replied, and I thought, you mean she can reply? These are people who care. So we contacted one another for a while, and then she invited me. So when I went there, actually we were only 3 people who were taking care of their loved ones. So I was the 3rd one. So when I didn't know even what happens in a support group. So the sharing came, and people were sharing, and one particular girl, she was young, she's still young. She shared a story. She was taking care of the mom, and she was sharing a story smiling, and I thought to myself, is she okay? Because I was crying like 24/7. You know, I had lost the man I love. I had lost, you know, I thought my life came to an end. So I saw her smiling, and I was wondering whether she's okay. In fact, I thought she was not okay. But by the time she finished and then my turn came, she gave me so much strength, because at least I am a mother and this is a small girl. So she gave me strength, and I was able to share my story with them. And then I think my healing started there, because, you know, I never used to take care of myself. Frankly speaking, I used to wear dark clothing every time. When I wear a bright one, it is not matching with my heart, so I wear a dark one. So my healing started there, and it has been since 2013. It is a long walk, but I can say that is why I am here. I'm able to speak, and that's why I speak to people and tell them it is not the end of the world. You know, there is hope in this disease. It is not all bad. It also brings some good aspects of it. So I would say the support group has been amazing in my life, and I know it is also amazing to other people.
Now, Ambika, just listening to Susan, even though she smiles and says she's come a long way, you can still see her eyes gloss up because of the journey it has been and what she's had to deal with. I mean, let's talk more let's talk more about taking care of the caregivers. I mean, you take in a lot having to deal or live with somebody who's living with dementia. What exactly or specifically do you teach them or make them aware of themselves as caregivers?
Yes, we teach them self-awareness. We teach them to look at what's going on inside them. So burnout is something that happens very frequently with dementia caregivers. So we encourage them to sense when they are reaching that burnout point, and to seek help, maybe take a break, maybe pursue a hobby, do physical exercise, get psychological support if needed. So these are some of the ways that they can really vent the kind of the emotional burden associated with caregiving. Yes. So we always say that please take care of yourself before you're able to provide care for others. And it's been amazing that some of them have really opened up, and they've shared their stories and helped each other. And that's an amazing part of this support group.
Yeah. And for you, Elizabeth, I mean, you know what she's talking about. You've lived it. You've walked in her shoes in a different perspective. How did you survive it?
I think when now I got the support group, when we formed the support group, for me also it was a journey of also understanding what I was dealing with. I think once you know what you're dealing with, it helps you cope better than when you don't know what you're dealing with initially, and then realizing that you are not alone. There are other people there who can hold your hand and who can support you. Most of the time, and most of the caregivers will tell you when they come for the support group the first time, they think I am all alone. Until now when people start sharing, and then you realize, oh goodness, actually I think even I am at a better space than they are. So you start realizing, hey, I'm not alone. There's something to be thankful for. Like Susan said there, it's not all gloom. There's sometimes you just sit down and just laugh about what happened. It may be a bit frustrating, but there are times you just sit down and say, oh, hey, he didn't choose to do that, or did it? Because like Dad was very violent, and for a long time I was very angry with him, and I felt he was being mean to me because I was named on the other side, not on the other side. And so for me, self-stigma, and I'm believing he hates me, and even on my wedding day he tells me I'm not your father. Go and look for your father to walk you down the aisle. And I'm thinking, well, why would he say such things? But now when I look back, and then it was very painful, but now it has been an opportunity to hold somebody else's hand and tell them, hey, we're here to support you. we are here to walk with you. You're not alone. It's satisfying. It's a feeling that you can't even equate it to even getting a salary at the end of the month, because it's not tangible, but you can just see this. Like I would tell you of Susan when I first met her, like she said, it's true, she used to wear very dark colors. Then now you meet her and she's actually running a support group. And I told her when I met her then that she will run a group of and help somebody else. And now she's running a group for the spousal ladies who meet every month due to her initiative. And for me, you see a change, because now she's out there to help somebody else, encourage somebody else. So it's an amazing feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Susan, creating awareness is the reason why this month is actually set aside to do that when it comes to dementia and Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. You came from a point where people did not understand what you were dealing with. How far have you come? Have people changed their perspective? Are you now surrounded by more informed people?
Yeah, sure I am. You know, I came from where people didn't even understand what was happening, because, you know, they think I am fine because I'm not the one who is sick. But to be sincere, the caregiver carries the biggest burden. Yes, you have a sick person. That person will not ask anything for himself. He will not complain. It is now you're thinking for, probably when he got sick, my kids were small. So I'm thinking for the kids, I'm thinking for my hubby, I'm thinking for myself. So as we have walked through this journey, you know, with my family, with my children, you know, even my own family never used to understand why I can't go home. You know, I tell them I can't come, I have a sick. They don't understand why I cannot attend the meetings. But currently where we are now is that the other day Elizabeth was in my house with my Jumuiya, Catholic Jumuiya, you know, creating awareness to my Jumuiya, you know, and my family, she also went to my family and told them about this disease. You know, people around me now seem to understand this better, and at least now I can hear a knock at my door, somebody's coming to check up on me. You know, that is progress, and I thank God for that.
Amazing, great strides there. Now, Elizabeth and Ambika, maybe you can speak on this. Do you see more people that suffer from forms of dementia in the urban areas or the rural areas, at least in the Kenyan context?
I think it's a mix of both, but more I think in the rural areas, because a lot of times the ones in the urban areas will Google, or even after, like now we've had this show, a lot of people will call and say, oh, I think I have seen this kind of symptoms. But if somebody is in the rural areas and they have not seen the clip, for example, or they were not able to watch TV, it might take a longer time for them to understand what it is. But now what is happening now, a lot of awareness is being created, and so even when they start saying, oh, they're forgetting, or somebody's going to the bank withdrawing a lot of money, not able to understand where the money has gone, people call you and tell you, where do I start? So for us, especially in the urban areas, there's a lot of information. Now what our plan is now move on to the rural areas to also bring that awareness also. And so we're working with the community health workers, so that if they go knocking on the doors of the people living in the community, then they're able to come and tell us, then we go and create awareness, so that everybody understands, not just the ones in the urban areas, but also the rural areas.
And do you intend to do this with the help of the county representation?
Yes, we are actually, like today after we finish this show, God willing, we'll be going to Nyeri, and we're working with the county government of Nyeri together with the community health workers. So we're going to train them so that we tell them these are the symptoms to look out for. So when you see somebody behaving in such a manner, encourage them then to go to hospital and then be seen by a neurologist. Then we come in and help from there, because we only come in after it's been diagnosed, and then we know what form of dementia we're dealing with.
Okay, yeah. Now Ambika, you're a specialist, clinical psychologist. I don't know, the question would be, how many of your specialty are out there that are helping in not only creating awareness, but helping those that are living with dementia?
Yes, one of our action plans is to also sensitize the mental health community towards dementia, to help them identify the early signs, and so that it's detected earlier, so that we're able to provide a better quality of life to the patients. And when I say that, we are also improving the quality of life for the family members. yes.
Okay.
So that's one of our action plans.
All right, so a lot more needs to be done even with the specialists to understand that there is a need to look out for this on a broader scope. Now, universal healthcare is definitely part of President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda. From your perspective, Elizabeth, how much more would you like to see dementia incorporated in the universal healthcare plan?
As Susan had also mentioned earlier, it's very expensive. So that's one of the things we would want to, at least the costs are manageable so that more people can be able to access medical help and are able to get coverage. Now, I know with NHIF at the moment, you're able to get an MRI at a subsidized cost if you're an NHIF member, but there are people even with that 8,000 is a lot of money for them, so they're not even able to go and get, and a lot of people, they don't get diagnosed because it's expensive. So we are hoping that with the universal health coverage, and that's one of the things actually that Dr. Njuguna mentioned, the Director of Mental Health, during the Alzheimer's Day, that it's one of the things that will be incorporated and be involved, dementia will be included in the universal health coverage. At least make it manageable. Let more people be able to access at least a memory clinic once a month to just know where we are at and what needs to be done. Because at the moment there's a lot of people who feel I can't afford it, so I can't go to hospital.
Okay.
So we hope it will incorporate dementia.
And speaking of some of the queries that are being put forth, and if you have any questions surrounding this conversation, you can call in. The numbers are at the bottom of your screen, or write to me at Gladys_Gachanja at NTV Kenya. The conversation is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and in Kenya this is real, and that's why we have our panelists speaking on the same. And there's a question here coming from Susan. You talked about awareness, and you have a group that you actually do, a support group that helps you with this, and you've been able to help others through it. I think the question here is this something replicated across counties, or how can somebody reach you?
It is not replicated around counties, because you know, when I joined this our group now, EduK group, I felt it is doing a tremendous job. But as a wife, I felt that the needs of our spouse are not being met in that larger group. So I approached Elizabeth and I asked her whether I can contact the ladies who are taking care of their husbands. Some of them are older by far than me. So she said it's okay. So I started the group, and it has not been easy actually even to bring them inside. But currently we are like 15 ladies who are really getting help from whatever we share, because we share a lot of intimate information. So we don't have a spousal group in the counties, but if somebody wants to join the one that is there currently, they are free to do so.
Or maybe this needs to now be replicated in the different counties you go to visit. And on your capacity, or in your capacity, Elizabeth, maybe you can speak on how somebody can reach out to the organization for advice on how to deal with their loved one who's living with dementia.
Okay. One, we run a support group every third Saturday of the month at KICC Impala Room. It's open to the public. We don't charge. It's free of charge. Also, we have our website, which is www.alzkenya.org, and also we have a Facebook page. But once you are on our website, there all the other links will come in. So anytime, we put a lot of information in there to help you, and where to start. Where do you start from? The number of the contacts of neurologists that you can get in touch with. They can help you in your first steps as you help your loved one, or if you notice there are changes with them. So those are some of the things that we are doing to try and just create that awareness about having that conversation about dementia.
Steve here is asking Mbika, when it comes to the cost of seeing a specialist, how much are we talking, and where can they get this help?
Right now, insurance do not cover dementia care except for the MRI, which will be used by the neurologist to provide a diagnosis. So it covers the cost of neurologist, and then many of them have psychiatric comorbidity, so psychiatrist cost, and sometimes they need psychological help, so the cost of psychological support as well.
Okay, and those questions keep coming in. It's interesting that now people are coming from that notion that this is only an old man or women disease. But I think at this point we need to talk about the fact that if you have younger people getting Alzheimer's, what is the support around the younger people? Because the stigma in itself is, I am suffering from something that is supposed to be of an older person.
Like when we were starting the conversation, Ambika said there are very many changes. There are more people now who are diagnosed, even younger people who have diabetes. Before, younger people never used to get diabetes. It was also for the elderly people, but now we're seeing younger people now getting it. So now it's just accepting that there's a change that's happening, and then if you can take care of the risk factors, eat the right foods. If you're smoking, for example, maybe reduce the number of cigarettes that you take, for example, or even you're drinking. Some of these things, it'll be lifestyle changes. There's no other moment, because those are just, because we cannot say for a fact dementia comes because of these issues. We are yet to know exactly what causes dementia. So try and avoid things, the lifestyle changes, change what you eat, how you exercise your brain. Especially, we do a lot of exercise physically, but do we do anything about our brain? Do we do Sudoku? Do we do crosswords? Do we challenge our brain and maybe learn a new language? So sometimes you just have to keep this brain active so that you don't get it. So a lot of times, a lot of people tell me, but I do everything right, but chances are I could get. I say, yes, you could. But if you know you have done the right thing, then you are at peace with yourself. So I think it's just a conversation that the younger people we need to start having amongst ourselves, because we are assuming I'll start taking care of my brain, or I'll start exercising when I get maybe to about 40, and maybe people say like that's when life starts. And then now you're thinking, but now baby, when you're in your 20s, that's when the changes started. So you need to keep active all the time. Okay,
it sounds like flexing your brain muscles. Yes. And somebody would say, I do this every time when I'm walking, when I'm in school, and what have you. What would you advise, Ambika, that maybe the younger people should take in mind even as they take care of themselves and ensure that they do not live or are diagnosed with dementia?
Right, like Elizabeth mentioned, we don't know what exactly causes dementia. We only know that these are the risk factors. So what we can do about the risk factors is take care of them. You know, eat right, do the physical activity, have your cholesterol levels right, have your sugar levels right. And like she mentioned, it's also about how active you are cognitively. So maybe learning a new language. And there is evidence that somebody who can talk more than one language, being bilingual or multilingual, kind of pushes the risk by 2.3 years or so. So it's about risk reduction. We don't yet know what exactly causes dementia.
Okay, so exercise your body, exercise your mind. Now, for Susan, when you're dealing with your husband, of course, it's come a long way and he's at a different stage at this point. Your family, your nuclear family, have they been able to accept him and deal with what comes with the changes? How is it at home now, many years later?
Many years later, I have been able to come to terms with it. I'm not going to say I am used. You can never get used to seeing somebody suffer. But I can say that I have come to terms with his condition. My 3 boys, 2 of them have come to terms with the situation, but one of them is still to get there. No, because you know, when you change a lifestyle, you know, from how you used to live with your children now to a different, difficult kind of life, you know, it affects the small and the big, you know, equally or maybe in different ways. So what I would say is that Alzheimer's or dementia is devastating, and it can destroy a family. But I thank God because we've been there for one another. We understand one another. Like now, just to be here, I left my son, did go to college so that he can stand in for me, so that I can come here and share my experience so that I can reach somebody else.
And for you, Susan, you talked about your different siblings dealing with it differently. How is the situation now that they are more informed and understand what your dad was going through?
I think we are, as we continued understanding more and more, a lot of times we were very angry when we started. And of course, there was tension amongst us. I remember even with my mother. Now, when I understood what the disease was, I kept feeling she is not understanding, and why isn't she understanding her husband is sick? And there was a time actually we had we were shouting at each other, and later is when I came to realize, you know, my mother is trying to figure out what it is all about. And I remember one day my sister called my mom out. Mom had to take a break because she was also going through depression, and so she went away for a few months. And so when she was there, my sister writes to me and says, have you seen your mother? And I'm like, what do you mean, have I seen my mother? And so she sends me a photo of my mom, and my mom had really lost weight. And I had seen her every day, but I hadn't seen how small she had become because of we are all dealing with the stress differently. But now when we look back, I mean, it strengthened us. We are closer to each other. We are more supportive of each other. We are friends, we can say that. But we had our fights, of course, like Susan is mentioning. It actually can break a family, and if you do not take time to build that relationship and know you're not the enemies, it's the disease that is the enemy, then it will take a while, but finally when you learn, you have a wonderful relationship.
Okay, a lot more questions coming through Twitter at NTV Kenya at Gladys_Gachanja about dementia and the different forms of it. And actually a question to you, Ambika, is for you to define the different forms of dementia and what differentiates one from the other. But before we get to that answer, we have Moses from Busia on the line with a question. Moses?
Yeah, my name is Moses from Busia. Hello?
Yes.
My question is that firstly, I'm 27 years old, but I have a problem with even remembering some of...
Maybe if we can increase the volume so that we can hear you. Yes.
27 years old, but I have a problem with even remembering the news about yesterday and some members of my family. So I'm wondering, am I developing dementia, or what is the problem?
How long have you had that symptom?
Since the beginning of this year.
Beginning of this year?
Yes.
Is there any history of dementia in your family?
Yes, my father had a problem, but he passed on in 2016.
Your father?
Yes.
Have you sought help for the same before?
No, I've never. Yes.
All right, Moses, thank you for your question. You're calling from Busia. Keep those calls coming through again. The numbers on the bottom of your screen. Ambika, going by what he just described, what do you think?
I was not able to hear him well.
He says that he has a problem even remembering some of his family members' names, some of the things that came naturally to him. And of course, he's mentioned that his father passed away of the same.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank him for coming out and sharing about this. And I would recommend that he sees a doctor who will refer him to a specialist service if required. So I encourage Moses to see his GP, maybe, general practitioner, and he might be able to direct him to further services. And he can also get in touch with us for further information, yes.
Okay, and for those that are asking about, you mentioned you go from one specialist to another and they do not understand exactly what you're dealing with. So at what point do you say, I would like a second opinion?
I think, and that's why we now tell people start with a neurologist, because by the time a neurologist is actually telling you you've got dementia and this form of dementia, they'll have done a lot of tests. There'll be blood tests, there'll be cognitive tests, there'll be just a clock test where they'll tell you maybe to draw a clock. So they would have done many tests. They'll have checked if you're depressed before they finally tell you that you actually have dementia. So now, starting with a neurologist, we are advising people that's the best way to start. Like Ambika also mentioned, there are also other changes where as you continue, there might have to come in, a psychiatrist might have to come in also. But start with a neurologist, then we will know how to go on from there. But now when you start with a neurologist, then it is very rare that you move from one specialist to another, because they have, that is their training.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you say see a doctor, he should seek a neurologist.
Yes,
Specifically a neurologist.
but sometimes in the counties, maybe they do not have a neurologist, and that's why she mentioned maybe start with the GP, just hear what he says, and that is one of the things that she said. We have a lot of training to do also for them to understand, and then maybe ask just a few questions to see, can you remember stuff, and then now direct you to the next source of help that you require.
Now, you would definitely see the concern for Moses. He's only 27 years, but the fact that his father died of dementia is why he's concerned he probably has the same. Now, to that question that had been put to you, Ambika, the different forms of dementia, and how do you differentiate one from another?
Yes. Dementia, there are some reversible causes of dementia, and then there are irreversible types of dementia. So if I have to talk about reversible types of dementia, it could be because of vitamin B12 deficiency that is seen with people who consume lots of alcohol. And there could be also thyroid hormone changes in the body brings about changes that represent dementia, but these are reversible causes. So if they are treated, then the chances are that there is no dementia, or we are able to revert back. And on the other hand, there are irreversible types of dementia. Alzheimer's, for example, is the leading cause, for which we do not have cure yet. And other types of dementia which do not have cure are frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, and dementia following stroke or vascular dementia. So these forms of dementia do not have a cure because they are progressive. Yes, those are the types of dementia.
Okay. From your experience, Elizabeth, have you seen people who've reached out to you about their family members, then after the walk with them, they've said it was reversed?
Yes, if it was a thyroid problem or vitamin B12. But other than that, like Ambika has also explained, if it is irreversible, once it starts, it does not stop. It's progressive. So any type of dementia that now you have been told this is a form of dementia, be it vascular dementia, be it Alzheimer's disease, once it starts, it does not stop. So we've not had cases of people who've had somebody with Alzheimer's disease or frontotemporal dementia come back and tell us now they're back to normal. But maybe if they had a thyroid problem or vitamin B12 problem, then we've had cases of people who have said once that was handled well, they've gone back to normal.
Okay, for you, Susan, somebody is asking, listening to you, you come from the urban setup, you've been able to get this treatment and the support that you need. If you need to ask questions or people to reach out to, how about that person who is in the mashinani? How do you help them? How have you seen when you go to your rural home people struggling to deal with this?
Yes, I have. And, you know, as Ambika said, you start from the nearest clinic to see your GP. You know, if we see somebody who does not know where they are at the moment, you advise them to see a GP. That is the first place to start, because neurologists are actually, I think they are in the urban centers. Out there, they are not there. So you get to a GP, you'll be able to advise you the next step to take, maybe to send you to a referral hospital like Kenyatta for diagnosis. But before, I think right now diagnosis is kind of easy, because we have shouted, or somehow we have shouted, people know that this thing is there. But before, like in my case, when we started, even when I am in urban centers, it was very difficult, because you know, I had never heard of the disease. Okay, I used to hear about dementia, but not Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is part of dementia. I never used to hear. That was my first time when she told me it is dementia. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. You know, I felt like I am crushed. You know, the news really, you know, they are traumatizing. So the best thing to do is that, you know, when we go to the mashinani there, today I think it is easier for people to know that they have dementia, because there are people who can guide them from one step to another. Yes.
Okay, now I am informed we have another query from a caller, Christian from Kisii. What is your question?
My question is that I've got issues to do with forgetting also. Forgetting the simple stuff, like maybe I have a key and then I'm looking for it. But I've not struggled with remembering important things, like back in school I used to do well. So when I was finding out about what my problem was, then I realized also some people, a group of people like the gifted people, also have the same problem. So how do you differentiate the Alzheimer's disease and for those people with a specific personality, as in those people with giftedness or such things? How do you get the difference?
Thank you, Christian, for your question. Before we let you go, how old are you?
I'm 24 years old.
Have you sought any help?
Yeah.
From a doctor?
I've sought help from a psychologist. And he thinks that it has nothing to do with Alzheimer's disease. But the person thinks that it is a personal trait.
All right. Thank you for your question, Christine. Thank you. Ambika, he clearly is asking, is he just a special, very talented, intelligent guy, as they say, and he seems to forget, or is he actually harboring symptoms that he should go to a specialist to just find out if he's dealing with dementia?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, because we all experience that, forgetfulness. Does it correlate to dementia? Maybe or may not be. So the answer is either ways. So the only person who can confirm what exactly it is a neurologist. Maybe he can start with a GP and then move on to a neurologist and find out what exactly is going on. Yes.
I mean, you can see where he's coming from. And after you mentioned that stress levels can actually lead to dementia, now, I mean, I can remember times where simple things would not come very quick to me, not because of dementia, but because I'm going through a stressful period. So how do you differentiate those two?
We always tell people, if you're able to retrace your steps back, for example, we know we have been at the studio today. So if somebody asks me, what have I done from 11 o'clock, then I'm able to say, I went to the Nation studio, for example, or I forgot my keys, for example, then I'll sit back at home and trying to figure out where else did I go. If you're able to remember that I was at this Nation studio, then that's okay, you are okay. And like you said, yes, when you're very stressed out, even you could be holding your car keys or your house keys and you're wondering where are the keys and you can't find them and they're on your hand. So yes, stress actually increases the level of forgetting. So if he can retrace, and what he mentioned the first statement he made was, I do not have a problem remembering things that have just happened. So that means he's still in control of what is happening around him. So if you can retrace your steps back, you're fine. But with somebody with dementia, they're not able to retrace their steps back. If we told them we were here and we had this conversation with you and we agreed on 1, 2, 3 things, they'll say, no, I last saw you 2 weeks ago. So they cannot remember that they actually saw you a few minutes ago. So now that is where there's a problem. But if you can be able to retrace your steps back, you're at a good space. Even if forgetting is normal, especially in our everyday lives, there's a possibility that you'll forget something. Okay,
yes. A question to you, Susan. You mentioned, and somebody made note of the fact that you said, when you think about your husband's what is it called, the things he eats, his diet, he has to eat and eat well. Is there any specific nutrition that goes to somebody who is living with dementia?
Oh, definitely, like any other NCD, there is some food that somebody can eat, because once you are told, use this medication, but there is no cure. This medication, they have adverse side effects. So in my case, I decided to discontinue those medications because I was seeing he was suffering more.
What were the side effects?
The side effect, he would slumber, like he's not there, but when he's not taking, he's vibrant. But when you give him, he just goes cold. So I decided, currently I'm giving him supplements only, but the diet that you should give this person, like myself, I put off red meat from his diet completely, and I concentrate much on fruits and green vegetables. That is what I concentrate on, and any other foods that are beneficial to the body. Not okay, forget about junk food. You know, if it is rice, I put small portion of rice, the rest is green vegetables, or if it is legumes, you know, like that, and then a lot of fruits.
So I guess bodybuilding
Yes.
foods. All right. Now, even as we come to the conclusion of this conversation, we will briefly cross over to the Safari Park, where Meru Governor Kiraitu Murungi is actually speaking on his 1-year scorecard. He is currently on the podium. Let's listen in.
And manufacturing and value addition. So they are all captured, you know, within Vision 2040. But we are also going beyond that. We also want to see how we can also promote Kemeru language and culture. We promote Kemeru history, you know, among other things, because that is not captured in the Big Four agenda. So we are going beyond to customize the Big Four within 2040, but also to look at broader horizons under the theme of making Meru great. Yes. Naona kama watu wako sasa wamefurahi. That's all.
Okay, that was Meru Governor Kiraitu Murungi, who actually is outlining his 1-year scorecard at the Safari Park Hotel here in Nairobi. We'll be getting more details from the same in our later subsequent bulletins. Now, as we wrap up on our conversation about Alzheimer's, or various forms of dementia, with Alzheimer's being one of them, and this month being dedicated to understanding what this disease is about, and also shedding light on some of the stigma that comes with it. Ambika, your last call for those that are living with this and those that have to care of those living with dementia?
Yes, so like Susan said, it's not all bad. So it shows us our ability to care for somebody. It shows us our ability to love somebody unconditionally. So it's not all bad. And certain uncertainties in life we have to deal with. So here we are to help the family member take care of themselves, and also to help give dementia patients a life of dignity. Yes.
Okay, for you, Elizabeth, I mean, this is a personal life journey. I mean, and now you've dedicated yourself to help those that have to leave or walk the same path that you have walked. Your last words?
For me, I just want to tell that, just like Ambika also has said, you're not alone. We're there to walk with you. Don't feel embarrassed and don't stigmatize yourself. What we do, especially during our support groups, we allow people to vent. Say anything that you're angry about, even if are you angry at God. Sometimes we also feel like he has let us down, or he has left us all by ourselves, when by the time they're living there, they're like, actually God loves me. So we give them an opportunity where they can just speak about what they are going through at that particular moment, and then we hold their hands. And for me, that is amazing, because you see somebody who walked in the first support group and you see them 3 months later, you can actually see a difference. And then they're willing even to go out and tell others, and telling others, no, you need to be checked if they start seeing some symptoms, or they tell you, no, I know a family member who needs your help. So for me, that is amazing. So we'll keep talking, we'll keep holding each other's hands and supporting each other along the journey.
Okay, and of course, Susan, it's a testimony of what a support system can do for you if you are taking care of somebody living with dementia. Your last words?
Oh, my last words is a question, first of all. You know, when you have a loved one who is sick, what are you taking care of? Are you taking care of the disease, or you are taking care of that person? So there might be no cure, but I know there is a medication for that. And that medication is love. Love that person for who he was and who he is even today. I take care of my husband with all the love that I can get, because I know it is not him, because he used to be very violent. He used to be very violent, and a lot of problems before I understood this. But when I learned that it is the disease that is causing all these problems, I had to change myself. And today I can say that I am good where I am because I'm able to take care of him with love and with a lot of, without expecting anything back. So to people out there, if you have somebody who is sick, please give it your all. Love them and take care of them like themselves, not the disease. Yes.
And of course, do unto others as you'd expect them to do unto you.
Exactly.
And now, even as I wrap this up, Elizabeth, again, how can someone reach out to you?
You can reach us on our website, www.alzkenya.org. There are phone numbers there that you can reach us on, and also we have a Facebook page. Once you get onto our website, you can always get in touch with us, and we are there to support you.
Okay.
Yes.
And of course, the fact that you will be in Nyeri to help those living in that county with dementia and their caregivers, to share with them advice on how to live with this. Ladies, thank you for your time. Of course, Susan Mwangi, caregiver of her husband who's been living with us for over 9 years, and Elizabeth Mutunga, CEO, founder of the Alzheimer's Dementia Organization of Kenya, ADOC, and Ambika, who is a clinical psychologist. Thank you, ladies. Well, that is a conversation around the World Alzheimer's Month. Remember, the different forms of dementia, Alzheimer's is just one of them. And as the ladies have told us, there is hope. The moment you're diagnosed or your loved one is diagnosed doesn't mean it's the end of the road. You can seek help and they can actually live a quality life. Well, at this point, we take a short break right here on NTV Today. We'll be back with the day's top stories at 1 p.m. Good afternoon. Thank you for staying with NTV Today. This is your 1 p.m. update. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Now, Tharaka Nithi Governor Muthomi Njuki has faulted the government's decision to cut funding to counties by 9.8 billion shillings. Speaking at Kajuki in Chuka, Governor Njuki said the budget cuts would greatly affect development in counties. Governor Njuki spoke when he commissioned a water treatment plant at Kajuki that was built in partnership with the Red Cross.
Kwa sababu ya ile koti, Mheshimiwa Rais alisema iongezewe ndio wapate ama serikali ipate pesa ya kulipa deni. Na sisi tunasema hatuna shida serikali kulipa deni. Kwa sababu dawa ya deni ni kufanya nini? Ni kulipa. Lakini wakati unataka kulipa deni, huwezi lipa deni kwa kuuza wananchi. Lazima ulipe deni na kitu ambaye itaumiza wananchi ama itamaliza wananchi. Ama namna gani watu wetu? Kwa sababu kama unataka kulipa deni, hauwezi amua ukate pesa ya county, pesa ya kununua dawa ya hospitali, pesa ya kuweka maji, pesa ya kutengeneza treatment plant kama hii. Alafu ujende ulipe deni ya kujenga barabara. Unajengea nani barabara?
President Uhuru Kenyatta has called on international pharmaceuticals to reduce the cost of medicine against non-communicable diseases, NCDs. He says that by pricing fairly, patients can afford the life-saving medicine, and the president was actually addressing a plenary session on the prevention and control of NCDs at the ongoing 73rd session on United Nations General Assembly in New York.
While most of the non-communicable diseases can be controlled so that the patients enjoy a full life, many Kenyans die shortly after diagnosis due to lack of the proper medication.
I call on non-state actors, including pharmaceutical industries, private health service providers, to partner with governments to bring down costs of treatment through fair pricing and ethical practices.
According to President Uhuru Kenyatta, Kenya aims to guarantee access to quality NCD care through an integrated primary health care approach. He says the approach will involve prevention and promotion of healthy lifestyles.
Personally, earmarked universal health coverage as one of our big 4 agendas in order to leapfrog Kenya's social developmental profile. Within this initiative, early detection, screening and treatment of chronic NCDs have been prioritized.
President Kenyatta called on the international community to consider an incentive fund to stimulate the development of national NCD and mental health interventions for low and middle income countries. President Kenyatta assured the global community of Kenya's support of the 2018 political declaration on NCDs, which commits UN member states to work towards the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
And staying with the 73rd UNGA conference, President Uhuru Kenyatta has held talks with Canadian business persons on the sidelines of the conference in a bid to attract them to invest in the country, especially in the 4 key sectors of his development agenda. Now, the business executives, including the most recent investor, David Kay, whose Tenor Capital company invested $300 million in renewable energy, expressed their desire to partner with the government in achieving President Kenyatta's big 4 pillars of development. Now, already 150 Canadian companies are operating in Kenya, and many more are lining up to take advantage of a potential offer in manufacturing, affordable housing, universal healthcare, food security, and nutrition. President Kenyatta noted that the meeting sought to strengthen the relationship between the 2 countries, even as he defended the newfound relationship between Africa and China against accusations of exploitation by the West. Kenya and Canada will be co-hosting the Blue Economy Summit in Kenya in November, and invited the business people to take advantage of the summit to explore the investment agenda further.
Good morning, everybody.
To energy in Kenya, thermal energy, geothermal. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Our friends, we have business leaders from Kenya, where we run 160.
Back home, the special edition of the Nation Leadership Forum pointed out the need for Kenya to include the private sector in the achievement of SDGs. The panel discussed sustainable development goals, otherwise known as the global goals, with special attention on the youth and advancing gender equality.
The Nation Leadership Forum was held on Thursday evening at the University of Nairobi Auditorium in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Among the key issues discussed was how to integrate the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, within the country's development framework. Kenya has been a top advocate of Agenda 2030, which seeks to end poverty by 2030 and pursue a sustainable future.
By 2050, we can turn this country into the richest country in not just in Africa but in the world. But we have to make those investments in what have been identified as the Big Four agenda. We need universal health coverage simply because without that, 1 million Kenyans go into poverty each year because of an out-of-pocket catastrophic health shock. There's no reason for this country to ever be food insecure.
Stakeholders are in agreement that bold measures are needed to reconsider global finance practices and generate investment for tackling the challenges facing sustainable development.
I think the most foundational one, which will in fact address issues around unemployment, insecurity, crime, opportunities for young people, for women, and all that, will be education. Education is really important, and not just any other education, but quality education. Education that enlightens and awakens the spirit, the mind, the soul, and education that enables us to be critical thinkers, to look around us and see problems, but in those problems, see solutions, and then be able to create solutions.
The game with only 50% of the people. If you look at statistics, actually, companies that have succeeded have a high number of women in leadership. Because when you have the same like-minded people leading the rest of you, who will stop to say, hey, let's look at it from this point of view. Let's address this other issue. So
the forum discussed at length ways to unlock the potential of Kenya's youth, who are key to the country's socio-economic progress and stability.
When we sit back and wait for things to be done for us, for policies to be created and all that, we don't go anywhere. But as young people, I wish to challenge us. At the county level, there are so many opportunities, like the CS talked about devolution. Where is the voice of young people? I challenge young people, let us just rise and begin to engage. Make your voice heard, ask questions, hold our leaders to account. We are complaining about taxes, about corruption and all these things, but then we are the same people who choose to sit back and just watch things happen. Go to social media, make a few noises here and there, but then we need to attend those public participation forums and ask difficult questions and make sure we are right at the center of decision-making processes.
I know it's tough, but it's better compared to before. So if we keep on pushing and knowing the power of young people, because the only one disease that always kills us as young people is tribalism. We kill each other. We forget to see each other as youth. If the word youth can unite us, we can change this country.
As a young person, hunger to know, hunger to demand accountability, hunger to drive, hunger to be successful, like that one doesn't have to stop, because once you get comfortable, it's the end of you. And I think that's what happens with people where we come from.
The Nation Leadership is a platform where professionals, stakeholders, leaders, and Kenyans get an opportunity to discuss issues related to development and create practical solutions on key issues critical to the development and growth of Kenya.
Now, while the Global Day of Tourism celebrations were marked yesterday in Budapest, Hungary, Nakuru County was a local host of these celebrations, with organizers setting their sights on boosting local tourism as a way of complementing the sector's contribution to the country's GDP.
On the shores of Lake Nakuru, the best of what the county has to offer when it comes to tourism and hospitality was on display. This was the country's first celebration of the 30-year-old UN-recognized day that was also being marked in Budapest, Hungary.
Africa has a major opportunity to harness the potential of tourism, to foster development and increase its participation in the global economy. In addition, tourism creates opportunities for millions of host communities in Africa and provides revenues for cultural and environmental preservation.
We want to make it bigger. We want to make it a series where not only one day, we'll be sandwiching the main day with other days, so that the people of Nakuru and the people of Kenya can find time to come and visit.
As a city in waiting, Nakuru is now looking towards embracing digital marketing of all it has to offer when it comes to tourism.
We have the Menengai Crater, we have Lord Egerton Castle, we have also the Mao Escarpment, which is coming out as an agro-tourism segment. We also have the aspect of sports tourism, where Nakuru is well known for rugby.
The event will be bringing five-time Grammy Award winner from America, Diane Reeves. So the event is happening in Naivasha. People will be meeting at Enashipai, where we'll be hosting Diane Reeves, and we'll have shuttle buses to Hell's Gate National Park. The county is in line to host 2 of the Big 4 agenda projects, with the textile city being in Naivasha and an agri-city in Njoro. The county now says this will be an annual event targeting exhibitors from all over the country. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Nakuru County.
Well, IEBC Chair, that is Wafula Chebukati, is currently in Migori County ahead of the senatorial by-election, which is scheduled on October 8th. He is in the county to meet different stakeholders and candidates that will be participating in that senatorial by-election.
The code of conduct is there, which you have signed. Ensure that you follow the code of conduct. If you don't follow it, the commission has a code of conduct committee which will enforce it.
Well, a by-election that we shall be following up for you, and our reporter Bernard Ojwang is on that story. Time for the sporting action. Sean Cardovelis is back in studio with the latest. stories, and the Senate ad hoc committee on maize is currently meeting maize farmers at Kabiyet in Nandi County in an effort to address their grievances against the National Cereals and Produce Board. Kennedy Morathi, our reporter on the ground, is actually now meeting, and he has been with the Senate in the North Rift region as they held the first ever sittings outside Nairobi. He will be giving us more details from the meeting in our subsequent bulletins. Now, leaders from Lamu County stormed out of a meeting that was set to deliberate on land acquisition for the construction of LAPSSET project after disagreements dominated the meeting. The meeting, chaired by Petroleum Principal Secretary Andrew Kamau, brought together officials from the LAPSSET Corridor Development Authority, the National Land Commission, the Ministry of Land, Ministry of Petroleum, and officials from the county government of Lamu ended prematurely after the elected leaders accused the government for failing to address the grievances faced by locals. NLC has already allocated 70,000 acres of land towards the project in Kililana and Mashundwani, but area leaders are objecting, saying the public participation was not conducted.
Hiyo 70,000 acres wamechukua is too much. They do not need it. Sasa wamekuwa wao ndio landlord, wanapeana ardhi zetu na sisi tumekaa hapa ni spectators. Hiyo hatuwezi kukubali without any consultation with us.
Kuna records ambazo zaonyesha, ningependa kuambia serikali kwamba the county government, even the former county government, wali reject hili swala, na sisi tunaendelea kulikataa. Hawa watu wamekuja na maamuzi yao kutufanya sisi ni wajinga, lakini the issue ni kwamba we cannot accept LAPSSET ichukue ardhi.
Elsewhere, 5 water companies operating within Murang'a County have launched a program to ensure poor families get clean water. The companies have identified 500 families drawn from various parts of the county. The families will get tapped water, tanks and gutters to harvest rainwater.
Speaking during the visit, the managing director of Murang'a Water and Sanitation Company, Engineer Daniel Nganga, observed that the initiative dubbed ProPoor targets poor families with water connection and billing challenges.
This program for water conservation, the gutters and buying of tanks, the companies has set aside 500,000 shillings, but we are asking well wishers to also support this program so that we can reach as many people as possible, because there are people who are in their need of water and they can't afford.
The MD said Mwasco has partnered with community health workers and local leaders to identify families who will be provided with water tanks. The families will also be educated on how to conserve water.
Kenya is classified as a scarce water country, and therefore we must use the resources, water resources that are available equitably. As the chair of water service providers, we have rolled a program of planting 1 million trees in this country.
One of the beneficiaries, Kang'ethe Mwangi, who has 3 mentally disabled children, lauded the support, saying his family will get the much needed commodity.
Walinipatia maji na sasa tena jana wakaniletea tank na akaniwekea geta, sasa naweza kutoa maji kama watu wengine. Na sitapata tabu tena, maana hata mvua ikinyesha ninajia kuweka maji wakati ujao.
Martin Mora, NTV, Murang'a County.
Thank you for your company. We shall have more stories coming away at 4 p.m. Do join us then. My name is Gladys Gachanja. NTV Sasa starts right after this. Good afternoon.